Right, me again. The main piece of equipment that I use in the studio, the thing that kind of runs everything, is the MPC Live. I've had this for maybe 2 years now, and since the day I bought it, it has kind of run everything. Now, all of the productions that I do, any genre, any kind of style, pretty much always start off outside of the box. So there'll be little jams that I'll do with hardware pieces like synthesizers, drum machines, samplers, synths, and so on. Now, in order to sequence all these, I use the MPC. I still use it as a sampler, like what most people do, but all of the time it's there to be a MIDI thing, like a MIDI brain. So it sends all my MIDI information out to all the other pieces, back into the DAW, but all of the outside of the box stuff is taken care of with the MPC. Now, I use a template. So as soon as I open it up, I have a user template. Within that, it has loads of different tracks that are all set up for different pieces of equipment, different sound libraries and things like that, and drum programs and key group programs. But I've been using the same one for about 6 or so months now, and it's getting a bit boring. So I thought I'd document me making a whole new one from the ground up. So an empty session, an empty project, and then build a whole new template to start for the end of this year, start of next year. Because the thing that I've found is that there's not really many videos on it. Most of the MPC videos are either specific techniques or workflows or specific features that are featured, but you rarely see someone actually making a full template and using it, showing how deep it can actually be and how good it can be for like the centerpiece. Basically, that's my computer. The MPC works as my Logic or my Ableton or my Pro Tools or whatever before I actually go into those to record the ideas down. So yeah, it's just probably my favorite piece of equipment. Recently just got a new little cover for it because the little rubber on the outside, it's like rubberized in it, and the rubber on the outside started to wear a bit from where I use it so much. So I've got a nice new cover from Style Flip, and so let's just start.
So this is an empty template. I've got no tracks saved or anything, no sequences. We're going to start from the ground up. So how I normally like to work is thinking about how I've got the tracks laid out on pads. For if I go to this here, the track mute, all of my tracks kind of correspond to certain things that are within the studio. So how I like to sort of work it is these 4 would be sort of hardware synthesizers. So for instance, the first one would be the Pro 2, the second one would be the Moog, the third one would be the TD3, and the fourth one would be the Lifeforms. And that would kind of give me control over the first 4 things, because normally when I start to work on something, I'm using just the hardware. The next 4 would be drum programs, so certain drum programs that I have loaded up, depending on the genre, but normally I keep to the same sort of drum programs, 909s, specific sounds and things like that. The next 4 would be instruments, so sort of key groups, and then the next 4 would be anything else. So I kind of leave those open depending on what it was that I want to do with those extras. So track 1, we're going to rename this, and I'm going to call this Pro 2. Perfect. And now I'm going to have a MIDI program here, which is going to send information out to the Pro 2. Now, how the MPC works, it's got 2 MIDI outs. It's got MIDI A and MIDI B. So on MIDI B, I believe, is the Pro 2. So let's go MIDI channel 1. Let's see if that's working. Yep, I'm getting signal on the synth. Good. So I know that that's the Pro 2. Also, what I'm seeing just out of shot here is the light shining for the MIDI on the Moog Minitor. That is because MIDI out B, or MPC MIDI B, goes out of here, out of the MPC, into the Pro 2, through that into the Minitor, which is down here. So I know I'm in the right one. So I'll call this, I'll save this as drum program, as MIDI program Pro 2. There we go. So I know that number 1, track 1, is always going to be Pro 2. Let's go over to track 2. We'll do the same thing here. But this is now MPC MIDI out B, but it's going to channel 2, which is the Minitor down here. What I'll do actually is let me add a new MIDI program here, and we'll do this out as MIDI B, channel 2, track. We'll call this Moog. We'll rename this one Moog. So now if I go to track 1, I'm on the Pro 2. Track 2 is on the Moog down here. Let's just make sure we've got signal. Yep, we're getting signal. Perfect. Now the next one, I'm going to pick the TB303 or the TD, the Behringer, that one, the Behringer one. So track 3, let's call this one TD3. Okay. Brand new MIDI program for this one. This one now is coming out MIDI A, and I've set this to be channel 15. Don't ask me why, I just have. it's channel 15. So here we'll change the name of this one and we'll call this one again TD3. Perfect. I know that's coming through. Excellent. We're getting signal on that. And then channel 4 is going to be the life forms just over there. So new MIDI program. We'll call this one life forms. Sweet. This is on channel 16 of MIDI A. And we'll call this track life forms. Life forms. Formed. Come on, shape. There we go. So now track 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've got the Pro 2 on 1, we've got the Moog on 2, we've got the TD3 on 3, and we've got the life forms on 4. So now if I go to my track mutes, anything that I have programmed into these, I can easily mute the information that's being sent to them. So that's my first 4 sorted. Happy with that. Next, on track 5, this is where we're going to start putting some drum programs. So I'm going to go to a drum program here, and I'm going to search for some. So I do have some saved from the hard drive. So I've saved loads of different drum programs in different sessions. So if I just double click menu here, it brings us to our browser area. If I go to my drum programs, these are all of the drum programs that I've ever saved. I have one in here which is called drums-effects. Now if I load this in, it's going to load all of my sort of housey drums, so 909s, kicks and claps. Got a couple of 808 parts in there, but it's also got some crashes in there. It's got a couple of samples in there as well. Just really good basic drum program. This, because I'm making electronic music, either drum and bass or garage or something like that, this is really good for that. So we're going to have one of those. Let's see what else we've got in here. I do like using amen breaks, not just for drum and bass, but for cutting up some of the sounds for other tracks. And I've got one here called Classic Amens. We're going to load that in as well. There's quite a lot in there, and also jungle pads. So this is pads taken from old school jungle records, which again don't always get used in jungle. I use those in different genres of music. So we're going to load the pads in. That's 3 we've got so far. I'm going to add one more. We've got some garage drums there. Let's see what else we've got. I think we'll go deep garage. So deep garage on that one. Deep garage drums. There we go. So we'll save that in. Now if I come back to my main menu, I can pick from channel 5 or track 5 what one of those kits I want to have. So the first kit is always going to be the drums and effects. So here we'll call this one drums. I'll just name it as that, drums plus effects. Excellent. Track 5 now, we're going to pick the classic amens. So we'll call this again. It'd be really good if there was like a function that let you name the track after the program. However, I do understand that's probably not going to work, seeing as you can change the program for the track, so that might make it a bit weird. Track 7, we'll put the pads in. Actually, no, I think we'll go for some more drums. So deep garage drums on that. So we'll call this deep UKG. We'll just name it as that. That's fine. And then lastly, on track 8, we're going to put the jungle pads. So we'll call this classic pads. There we go. So now, if I go back to my track mutes, I've got all of my MIDI outputs set to here. So 4 different synthesizers. And then we've got drum tracks, amen breaks, UKG drum kit, and some classic pads, which I can just use to chop up and sample and use for different parts. Sweet. Right, next. So track 9. On track 9, this is where we're going to start to put some key groups. So I'm going to go pick a key group. Again, double tap to go back to my browser. We'll look at the key groups. There's a few things that I have as standard here. So one of them is a piano. So we've got the F9 club piano. This is from the label F9. So it's like a sample library label run by James Wiltshire, which is brilliant. I've got loads of their packs. But the club piano, I'm really liking that. So we're going to load that in. It's just excellent for those club piano sounds. We'll name this one piano. There we go. Actually, no, I'll call this the F9, just so I know exactly what one it is. F9 piano. Piano. Oh. There we go. Track number 10 now. Let's look for something else. So let's see what else we can get in here. M1 organ. It's always useful. If I'm making house, let's look through. I don't mind sort of trialing bass lines out from here. And I've got some Serum bass lines that I've used. So the Serum Super Saw is really good. It's just an auto sample function on the MPC, which sampled a patch that I'd made in a VST called Serum. There's a liquid Reese here. I think I'm going to go for the Serum Super Saw. Works really good as a bass, so we're going to put that in. Go back to the main. So track then is the Serum Saw. So I just call this Serum Reese. Just so on the track, when I go back, remember to my track mutes, I'll always know that my Reese is on that one, just to sort of sample some bass lines over the top. Track 11 now. Let's see what else we can put onto track 11. Let's see what's we've got here. Some pads. No, I think I'm good for pads. I've got some Reeses. I might actually go for that M1 organ, I think. Just gets a really good bass and it's just a classic sound. And I do normally, yeah, I'll put that in. I do normally use it. So M1 organ, track 11, M1 organ. And then track 12, we can be a bit more adventurous. So let's look through. There's sub there. Create that. Come back. Track 12, sub. So on my tracks now, I've got my 4 MIDI, I've got my 4 drum programs, and now my 4 instrument programs. The next thing to do is look at the separate outputs for this. So I am running all the 6 outputs on the MPC. If I go to the mixer now, you should see all of these different sounds. The group is set to out 1 and 2, but if I go to the separate sounds, you'll see I've already saved with the kit the various subgroups that they will go to. So for instance, the kick goes to sub 1, sub 3, sub 2, and so on. So kicks and different things go to different separate outputs. This kick is already set. So what this means is I need to double check to make sure that those subgroups are being outputted to the correct outs. So if I come out of here and we go to the channel mixer, what I need to do, instead of it being in programs, if I go to submixes, I need to check submix 1 is going out 1 and 2. This is wrong. According to my group here, my kick drums are going out sub 1, and I want my kick drum to go out of a specific output in mono. So come to the channel mixer, submix 1, I need that to go out of output 4. That's basically the kick output, okay? As you can see, I've color-coded things, so claps and snares are in greenish blue, red is kicks, and then the various other parts are, like these ones here, are kind of hats and percussion. So as you can see, submix 1 is the kick, snares are submix 3, and then percussion is submix 2. So on the snares, let's go to submix 2. Oh no, that was submix 3, wasn't it? That's correct. So submix 3 was going out output 3. Submix number 2 now, if I click on this, now needs to come out as stereo output 5 and 6. So what this means is now my kick comes out its own analog output, which then gets fed into its own input onto the interface. The claps will always go out to submix 3. Submix 2 again, for I've got a few loops in here. Excellent. And now these ones you shouldn't see coming out of any kind of subgroup because these are effects. So these effects that I have on here are just going to be coming out of 1 and 2, hopefully. So we've got 2 loops which come out of submix 2 for percussion, but then all of my effects that are up here, these are coming out of 1 and 2, so the standard output. This means now that whenever I want to bounce these out or record these in, should I say, I've got a separate track for the kick, a separate track for the snares, separate track for the percussion, and then everything else goes out of 1 and 2. On the classic amens, everything comes out the program of 1 and 2. I'm going to leave this for now like this because I don't know what I'm going to be chopping out of these. For things like the drum group with effects, I know that this is always going to be a kick and so on. This is kind of like my dominant drum group. So I know that I'm going to want to record that one always on its own. These are going to want to recorded on their own tracks and so on. So UKG group, exactly the same sort of thing. So We got a couple of kits here. I'm going to leave these as they are, even though there's some kicks in there and some hats in there. I'm going to leave this just as it is because I know that these are just going to be layered parts. So it's really easy for me to just go to one single pad, say that one, and change it from program to sub 2 or sub 3. In order to save this, I'm going to come up to the top. I can save as whatever I like, and then just save as template, that option in the bottom right hand corner there, and then it will save it as a template for me. So whenever I open this up again, it will be ready and saved, which is excellent. So this is the moment of truth. Use a template. I'm going to name it that. Save as template. It's going to ask me, do I want to override what was there before? I do, but not yet. The reason for that is I need to come back to my channel mixer and look at my actual outputs, so my masters. This gives you the option to put plugins on the masters. I love the MPC because of its workflow, but it does sound quite clean. It does have some other algorithms in there that emulate older machines like the MPC 60, the MPC 3000, SP 1200 and so on. Here, this is where I can add those in. So on 1 and 2, I always know this is going to be non-drum stuff. So things like instruments and added elements. So like the main outs. On here, I'm going to choose from the vintage menu, the MPC 60, because it sounds really nice and fat. And I'm going to copy that over for every single output. So on every output track, 5 and 6, MPC 60, we're going to close. So every single one of these, MPC 60 for all of my possible outputs on the back. So now I know my outputs are set. I've got it working kind of like a MPC 60 in terms of the sound quality, and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to leave it saying sequence 1. I don't need any more information on that. Just trying to think of any last minute things. Everything should be nice and clean. We're working on 4 bars to come in with. If I press play on this, everything kind of syncs up, which is good. And that's pretty much the template. So as you can see, all of my parts here are kind of saved. I kind of like the look of the color of that group and that group and that group. Drums and effects, kicks in red, claps and percussives in greeny blues, everything else in everything else. And then, yeah, everything's kind of ready to go from that point. So yeah, this is how I'm making my templates. Let's save that. Let's commit to it. Save as. Use a template. Save as template, please. Save. Overwrite. Perfect. Also, before I forget, I might as well show you exactly what's routed into where, I suppose. So I use the Apollo system by Universal Audio, and this is the template here. So this is exactly where everything goes in. So as you can see, I've got the microphone coming in here. I'm using a Unison preamp for the microphone. The UA610B then goes into a Neve channel strip, which is then nothing really going on other than a low pass filter. The EQ's in, but it's not doing anything, just in case I need to change the tone of my voice for lectures. I never do. That then goes into this, the LA2A, lovely compressor. But then all of the instrument tracks, everything that comes in here. So I've got the Moog. If I just play that quickly, you'll see. Moog comes in there. As you can see, yeah, it's all, I'm just using the new template already. TD3 goes there, lovely. Next is the live forms. Excellent. Next is the drums. So right, ready. This is where on the MPC, the drums, I've got the MPC main, but I've got snare, kick and percussion. So kick's coming on that track, snare's coming on that track, and all the percussion parts going on that track, like loops, etc. Next down here, I've got these tracks down here. So I've got the SP16. I'm using 4 outputs on that. It comes with 8, but I only use the 4. So I've got a mono output for the kick, a mono output for the clap, and a mono output for alternate stuff. So yeah, if I play this quickly, garage beat that I've been working on recently. You can see the kicks come out there, claps there, alternates come out there. So basically, whenever I'm recording anything, it will record in the background. So yeah, everything just sort of works that way. So I've got each individual stems for different tracks and so on. I'll talk about the processing a little bit. So on the processing side of things, from the Moog down to everything, I've got a Pultec on everything, just in case I want to do broad strokes of EQ. The Moog here, you can already see I've got a nice boost at 60 hertz there on the Pultec. But then every single track you can see has one of these on it. The Sonox Inflator, Oxford Inflator by UAD, but it's a Sonox plugin. This just adds like harmonics to everything. It just makes it sound really good, if I'm honest, and everything is recorded. So over here you'll see UA record. So all of these plugins get recorded through the signal path, and it just makes everything sound a little bit fatter, if I'm honest. Like if I just program a kick quickly, and let me just put a kick in. There we go. So those kicks there, if I take this off, it's nowhere near as fat, is it? It's quality, isn't it? So yeah, that gets everything. Saves me doing the processing later. But yeah, I mean yeah, I'll stop that now because that's annoying. But yeah, every single track has got that on it. So you can see most of the instrumentation here is drums. So I've got a kick and a clap from the SP16. I've got a kick and a clap from the MPC. The main is just the instruments that come out of that, so I can record all of those onto one track. The percussion has got its own one, 5 and 6. However, this can change depending on the style of things that I'm making. This is just the standard. Liveforms on its own, again, with some of that in it. The last track you see here, this is a virtual input, so this is the only one with no plugins on. What this is basically like a loop back. So everything in my computer, everything on my Mac plays out of a virtual track. Instead of going straight out 1 and 2, it plays through a virtual track that then gets sent. And as you can see here, look, I've set this output to 7 and 8. This is mirrored though, so I will still be able to hear everything that comes through my computer, but this here also goes out of 7 and 8 on the interface. So down here on my patch bay, I can come out, basically sample anything that's in the computer, come out of it, and then just go and patch it into the MPC to sample, or into the SP16 to sample, or just into Logic or Ableton or Pro Tools just to sample back in and kind of loop back, rather than using a plugin like Loopback or something like that. So yeah, this is how everything's recorded, pretty much. Actually, if I just show you the Pro Tools session, you'll see everything in the background recording. So yeah, there you go. Look. Different parts and that. Everything's, my voice is recording live there. There we go. It's all different parts. Moog, Liveforms, TD3, SP kick, snare, MPC kick, snare, MPC main, the Pro 2. There you go. See, look, nice recording there. Sweet. So yeah, that's it pretty much. Till next time. See you later.